Again, my name is Frankie Sturm. I'm the Assistant Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate here in Hyderabad, and I'm really excited to be at this inaugural workshop for the workshop Countering Disinformation for Telugu Reporters. And to get things started, I'd like to take a little trip back in time to ancient Greece. Which is probably not what you were expecting. Now, please raise your hands if you're familiar with the story of the Battle of Marathon. Does anybody know this story? All right, I see one or two hands. So, this is a battle 2,500 years ago. The Persians invade Greece, and there's this big fight, big battle near a city called Marathon. And the Greeks actually win this battle. It's the first time they had ever defeated the Persians. And a messenger ran from the battlefield back to Athens, 26.2 miles. That's where we get the word marathon for the marathon race. So he runs all the way back to Athens to tell the people of Athens, "Joy, for we have won a great victory." And then he dies on the spot with exhaustion. Very dramatic story. It's probably a little more myth than it is history, but I try to imagine how this story would go in today's media environment. Now, of course, you would have that first messenger, and he would say, "Joy, for we have won a great victory." But then someone else would show up and say, "Fake news, the Persians won." And then someone else would show up and say, "Lies, it was a tie, nobody won." And then someone else would say, "That's not what happened, they're still fighting." And of course, we wouldn't be done yet, because someone else would say, "No, the battle hasn't even started yet. The Persians are on their way, they're not even here." Or the Greeks and the Persians stopped fighting and decided to play a game of cricket instead. Which would be very interesting historically if that's what happened. But meanwhile, the poor people of Athens, they wouldn't know what to think, because they're getting so much conflicting information, some of which is true, some of which is false. And because they don't know what to think, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to orientate themselves in the world because they don't know what's true. And I don't know about you, but oftentimes that's how I feel when I look out at today's information environment, when I open a newspaper or when I watch cable news. The proliferation of disinformation in the United States and in India, it's a well-documented phenomenon. We all know this is an issue. And the truth is, it's a direct challenge to the foundation of democracy, which sounds a little grandiose, but when you think about it, if we cannot get together and debate the big issues of the day and argue about them and figure out what laws we ought to pass to solve problems, well, we can't do that if we don't have a basic understanding of shared facts. We don't share a common reality. And in fact, in several countries, we've seen violence unleashed on vulnerable communities and individuals due to that kind of disinformation and fake news. And so even though disinformation isn't brand new, it's not the first time it's ever happened in human history, I think it's really gotten worse during the pandemic when so many of us were stuck in our homes, behind our computers, and looking at social media. And so the problem is getting bigger. And a lot of that problem, of course, stems from social media, where anyone can write or say anything at any time with no filter, with no editors, and the whole world can see what they have to say. Now, unfortunately, sometimes the disinformation comes from legitimate media outlets. And this is not out of malice. This is not because people are ill-willed or are trying to do harm, but it's because we are swimming in a sea of information, some of which is true, some of which is false. And I don't have to tell the journalists in the room how hard it is sometimes to tell the difference when there's so much information to sift through. It's almost like the grains of sand on a beach, trying to go through all of them to figure out which grain of sand is the truth. It's a really, really hard task that you have as journalists. But of course, it's important that we all work as hard as we can to see what that difference is and do our best to articulate it. Particularly for journalists, because we as the public rely on you to a great degree to understand what's going on in the world. And that's what this training is all about. We know the war against disinformation will not be won in a single battle, but we know that journalists, you're on the front lines. So we at the consulate, we put out this call for proposals to create a network of Telugu television reporters across media houses in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh to have extensive training from bona fide experts in fact-checking and combating disinformation. And Osmania University responded to that call, coming up with this great plan to equip journalists with cutting-edge tools and skills to counter disinformation. And let me just say, oftentimes when you come together for an event like this, everything that goes on behind the scenes to make the event happen, everything that goes on behind the scenes to make an excellent workshop or series of workshops happen. Osmania University has worked extremely hard, and they've been an excellent partner to make it as successful as it has been. Because after all, we get better at spotting false narratives. Even if we're good at it, right? We can always get better. And this program, which Osmania University has been running, is designed to help journalists hone their skills, the skills that you already have. And in the end, this will benefit not just you as individual journalists, but hopefully you'll be able to share lessons with your colleagues back at your newspapers, your television stations, whatever media outlet you work with, you'll be able to share this information with them as well. And more importantly, it will affect the way that you present the world and the news to your viewers. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for your active participation. And thank you again to Osmania University for putting together such a great program. Enjoy the workshop. Thank you.